there's a lot to know about beta sororities, and I feel like if you're a new fish keeper, you probably shouldn't try to go that route. Definitely not. I would say to start, if you've never kept a fish, or if you have kept fish but you've never kept beta, let's just say you've never kept beta, get a beta. Get two. Put them in two different tanks. Watch them. Observe them. See how they, just watch them every day. Watch their eating habits, how they come up to you and greet you, and, just pay attention to them and do it for a while. If you're really serious about getting a beta sorority, plan ahead. Get as much research as you can, and I don't mean just on YouTube, because honestly, one of the things that I have found that has helped me a lot with betas is not just, or let me say a beta sorority, is not just learning about a beta sorority, but learning about the beta first. And I didn't get all my research from YouTube, because why would I do that? I want to get my research from other ways, other content. So, yes, I Googled, I bought books. I have several books that I bought. I don't know, can you see it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Several books. I read magazines. We are subscribed to Tropical Fish. There's all kinds of magazines. There's all kinds of places to get your information as far as betas and beta sorority. But like I said, the most important thing you want to do is know about betas. Know about them. Know about their diet, because once you know about that fish in particular, it's a little bit easier to do a beta sorority. Now, I like to use an analogy. I compare sort of a beta sorority tank to keeping an all-male African cichlid tank. Now, I can talk all day about an African cichlid tank, an all-male African cichlid tank, and Buna tank, and whatnot. And one of the things I tried to do is kind of compare the two, but instead of having an all-male beta tank, you're going to have an all-male female tank. And just because females can go together, it doesn't mean that they're not aggressive. Female beta are also aggressive, but they're a little bit less, I guess you could say. But you have to know how to introduce them to a tank. When you want to start a beta sorority tank, like I said, plan ahead. Don't just put one in and another one in and then add another one. Go ahead and get your tank set up. I would say preferably a 20-gallon. A lot of people start with 10, but if you're going to do it right, get a 20-gallon. And I would say a minimum would be 5, but for a 20-gallon, some people would argue with me because they would say, oh, you can't put more than 5 in a 20, but I think it would be okay to put like 7 or 8. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for that, but the more you have, the less aggression there is. Sort of like with African cichlids. The more you have going on, the less there is to have a bully picking on a couple. You know what I mean? So like if you have a few of them, or how do I put this? If you have, say, a 20-gallon with 7, 8 betas in there, you're not going to have so much of a like a bully picking on just one. And let's say you do have one. Now, do you remove the bully or do you remove the weaker fish? What I would do is, first, I would probably move things around just like I would an African cichlid tank. Move things around, see if that works first, and if it doesn't, then just remove the bully. That's what I would do. Another thing is you want to have plenty of plants, lots of plants, like tall plants, short plants, plenty of caves or little, what do you call them, like coconut hut things or something. They like to have their own space, just like African cichlids, you want to have plenty of hiding spaces. And I wouldn't put plants in an African cichlid tank. And I'm sorry if I keep comparing the two, because some people aren't here for nobody's here for African cichlid, you're here for beta. But what I'm trying to say is, if you give them enough space, if you put the right amount in, and you do it all at one time, I think it's very important to add them all at one time, not one at a time, and you give them a proper diet, you should have a very successful community tank, or beta community sorority tank. And when I say community as well, because some people put dithers in, you could put dither fish in, and that helps. Like maybe for a 30-gallon, you could add, say, 7, 8, 9 beta, and put some neon tetras in there to help kind of break it up a little bit. That'll help keep them not focused so much on each other. And that's just, like I said, that's my opinion. I have found that things like this work for me. I have a beta community, or a beta sorority. I want to keep saying community because I keep thinking of something else I plan on doing soon. But I have a beta sorority, and I probably have it a little bit more overstocked than what I should, but that's because I bought 8 baby girl betas. They were very small, and I set up a 15-gallon, and I planted it pretty well, I guess. At least I think it's planted pretty well.
They are the fish on the thumbnail, by the way.
Yes. Also, I have a plant I have a lot of these plants growing all over my house, and I snip them, and I root them. They're philodendron, something like that. Anyways, they do really well. They grow fast, and I take them and I stick them in the top of my beta tank, and the roots come down, and the betas just love swimming through them. So I mean, that's another idea if you want to do something like that. Say you only have some of the shorter plants and you don't have any plants that are taller yet, you can always do something like that, because the roots come down and they help, and the beta really love that. Another thing is proper diet. You don't want to feed your beta the exact same thing all the time. That's just boring, and they're not going to thrive that way. And another thing is, if you're not happy with what you eat, aren't you going to get a little angry? I mean, I would. So I like to give my beta, I have it right here. If I'm going to use a pellet, I don't really use a beta pellet. I don't like the beta pellets because they're so big and they're kind of fat, and it's like, how does the beta even get that in their mouth? I use the tropical formula for small fish bug bites. And I'm not advertising for these people either. I'm just telling you, that's what I use, because the pellets are so tiny that I find that the beta can eat them better and they digest them better. I haven't had any of them get constipated or anything because of it. I also use like a tropical flake. I use bloodworms, a frozen bloodworm, and frozen mysis. And then once a week, I fast them. I don't feed them on Sundays. And also another very important thing is, go ahead, give them a frozen pea. That doesn't hurt anything. It helps their digestive system, and it keeps things moving along. Because one of the last things you want to do is get confused. Is your female beta, egg bound? Or is she constipated? Does she have dropsy? So one of the things that's important is to have a proper diet. That way you know that they're digesting the right way, and you can rule that out. Let's see. Clean water, that's super important. You're going to have more fish in a tank. You think just because they're small, they don't go to the bathroom a lot. Well, they do. You want to keep their water clean, because there is that chance they could rip one of their fins, maybe they did get in a little scuffle that you don't know about, but let's just say they rip a fin on something sharp in the tank. If you have clean water, you don't have to worry about a bacterial infection setting in, and that is super important, because the last thing you want to do is worry about something like fin rot or just anything bad like that in general. So clean water, proper diet, have the right amount of them in a tank, lots of plants or hiding spots. Keep an eye on them, and always, always, always have a backup tank. Even two backup tanks is great, but for sure one, because if you do have that bully and you have to take them out, then what are you going to do with them? You're not going to put them in a vase, right? No, you want to put them in a tank, give them a great life too, but you need to be prepared, because even if it's not a bully, you might have a fish that gets sick and just needs to be treated. Things happen. So when you get a Betta sorority going, have a backup tank, plan ahead, do your research, and hopefully you can have a successful Betta sorority or Betta sorority community tank. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, since I did, but then you said
heat,
it at the end.
the temperature. I'm just going to add one more thing. Just to stay comfortable, keep it between 74 and 78. Give them a little bit of leeway, because if there is a chance that they might get sick for some reason, or let's just say they get ick, or they need the temperature raised a little bit, you have room to go, because they can be put in tanks a teeny bit warmer if need be, but you don't want to do that if you don't have to. So, did you want to say anything now?
Well,
no, just one more thing. No, just kidding.
I was going to talk about the backup, but then you said that at the end, which is good. And I would add to that a little bit and say, have plenty of backups. I mean, one of the key things to fish keeping, not just keeping a Betta sorority or keeping bettas or anything, one of the key best pieces of advice for fish keeping in general is always have a backup plan. Always know what you're going to do. So I think the best plan for a Betta sorority is have somewhere to put all of them in case something goes wrong. I mean, I know that's completely overkill, but you're not going to get a tank and put 65 female bettas in there. I mean, that's not going to happen. I'm sure it's been done, but that's not going to happen. You're going to have 5 or 6 of them. So, have something that you can do to separate all 5 or 6 of them if you need to. That would be the only thing that I would add. And it could even be the tanks that have the built-in dividers that are made for Betta tanks and stuff like that.
I don't like those.
Well, not the really teeny ones. I'm not talking about those, but I'm talking about the ones that are a decent size. But yeah, I think you did well. I think you hit all of the marks. That's very good. I did not write that for her, folks. That is all her.
Why would you write it for me?
Well, because I write 10 things.
I do research. I love Betta. I love looking things up about them, because there's so many different kinds, and I think they're fascinating little fish. I never thought I would get into Betta like I have, but I mean, they're great. And you can do it. You can do it successfully. You shouldn't be scared to do it, but you should definitely be aware of the consequences. And I think it's probably one of the worst things you could do is set up a sorority tank and add them one at a time. I really think that is the worst thing you could do, because there's going to be that one that's already decided they're going to be the queen of the tank, and anybody that comes in, they're going to want to bully them a little bit. So my advice would always be to, if you're going to set up a tank, plan it and then do it. Do it all at once. Put them all in at one time. Let them find their rooms, space, whatever, and do it all at one time. Again, that's what we would do with African cichlids, and it's so funny that I keep going back to that, but I feel like it's very similar. It's very, very similar.
That was the only other thing I was going to add too, is that it is very similar, because what are you afraid of? You're not afraid of having to feed this fish one thing and that fish the other thing. You're feeding them all the same food every feeding. You're worried about the aggression. I mean, they're called Siamese fighting fish for a reason. And yeah, the females are maybe not as instantaneous killers as the males are, but they can still do their share of damage. And you got to keep an eye on that. So that's, I don't know what else needs to be said. That's the biggest thing, is have a plan, know what you're getting into, and know what you're going to do if things go wrong. And we've got plenty of places to put betas. I mean, so,
like I said, get to know the beta first. Get to know betas in general first. Don't just say, hey, those are cool fish. A lot of them are cheap. I can get the females cheaper. Let me just go do this for the heck of it. I won't lose a lot if I do it. No, that's not the way to look at it. Do your research, and if possible, get 1 or 2 beta first and observe them, so you know how they are, what kind of fish they are, because they're actually beautiful, personable fish just by themselves. So.
Well, and what I love about that tank that we have in there is that they're all so different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, their fins are different, their colors are different, their personalities. We've got a pretty good group in there that their personalities are all pretty much the same. And you're hitting it on the head when you talk about them being so similar to keeping an all-male African cichlid tank, because it really is. You walk up to the tank and they all come up to the top ready to eat and all of this. Their behavior is very similar. They're just little teeny tiny fish. So it is similar, but I don't think it's as difficult. I mean, because there's going to be fighting in an all-male African cichlid tank. It is going to happen.
Oh, definitely.
You could get lucky. I mean, we haven't had any major issues. You had one get its fins nipped up a little bit in that tank, but
I think it was like the first week or 2, and that's bound to happen. I mean, if it's gonna happen, it would be like the first week or so. And what I did was, since I noticed that the aggression went away from that fish, I didn't remove it, but I did add some like Melafix and some Aquarium salt to help the other fish's fins heal, and it did real quick, and it's fine now.
Somebody asked, is the Betta Sorority coming out here? The answer is absolutely yes. I don't know if we're going to bring the 2 tanks that we have. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's actually a really cool tank from Aquarium. You bought it at Petco right down the street. Mm-hmm. It's a 15-gallon column tank, so it's really tall and narrow. And we've got 2 of those, and one on each side of our TV. So it looks really cool in there. But I've been trying to convince her to bring those out here. I don't know where we would put them, but you're going to go with either the 75.
Tanks will come out here. I can't guarantee the fish will be in those tanks when they come out here.
They're going to be guppy tanks.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
The betas will be going in something else bigger, because that was the plan all along, not to keep them as adult females in the 15. So.
Yep. Very good. So yeah, that's awesome. You did a great job on that. You got just as in depth as I would, and I tend to go too far in depth. So that is today's main topic.